Time for part 2 of the workshop makeover. This shelf is the next one to go as we put some shallower, more accessible shelving here for the things that I use every day. Plans again, they will be done up on the website as soon as I finish this and make sure that they work. Last video wasn't meant to be a Kreg video per se, but it just goes to show how much the Kreg brand does help novices. And while this video isn't sponsored by them either, I do have a little surprise coming up when we hit that stage. Let's get started. Again, like last time, I am going to attempt to use up the last of my scabbed plywood and MDF scraps and offcuts. This can again be done with one sheet of 17mm, plus some MDF. Quite a bit of MDF, to be honest. Geez, those bits are rough. There's barely a square corner anywhere. I had to do a lot of trimming. To give me the reference point so I can cut these bits out, which are the walls and the middle dividers, to their final size, which is 382. I love the repeatable cuts you can get on this stuff. All the 382s are done. Now I'll flip them around and the final cut this way is 300. Well, that's the main part of my cutting done, and again, no table saw needed. Not as fast, I suppose, but square cut, rip cut, and look at these. All exactly the same size, but the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed there was one slight change in texture on the very last cut. I ran out of 17 and 19mm ply big enough, so rather than going out and buying some more because I am a massive tight ass, I've decided to use the 18mm MDF. Dado time. The only ones you really have to cut for this project are the ones that are going to hold the stationary shelf, which forms the top of the drawer. Now again, because I was using scrap, I ran out of 17 and I've gone to 12. I am, like I did on the last project, going to do the ones on the sides and the ones in the middle for the walls. That's to help keep things nice and square and to help me with my gluing up stage. If you didn't want to do that, you can just use the Kreg jig. You're just going to have to be a little bit more careful when you're clamping things down to make sure that they stay nice and 90. For the rebates I'm doing 19mm and I still don't have my good bit back from my mate who I lent it to, so I've gone to my old crappy one. It's going to smoke harder than a bogan doing circle work, but it should get through them. Just going to look a little bit dramatic. Holy moly. Cutting the dados for the two center dividers is probably the hardest part of this entire build process. I have done 1/4 millimeter pass on there to ensure that that is 227 mils, which by my plans and miraculously by my actual measurements is where I need it to be. Not gonna lie, pretty bloody chuffed right now. Oh mate, it's just so good when stuff works. Honestly, my router table is not the best thing in the world. It's pretty good, but I made it as one of my first projects before I knew anything. I still really don't know much, but I do know that the router table could have been improved, and I will one day. But at the moment, cabinet making, coming along. I'm trying something different with the cleats this time. I'm going to remove a part of the center dividers for each of the new shelves so that the cleat will stick in it like that, and I'll just be able to hang it on the wall. I hope. I use this laser cut 90-degree angle, yes, laser, we'll talk about that a bit later, in order to clean up one of the corners, and now I can use it to flush trim the other 3 bits. I had literally just set up my Kreg jig to begin the pocket hole assembly of the shelves when my phone beeped and had to make a quick bike ride out to the post office. Because this just arrived. I am somewhat, as you might have picked, a Kreg fan. I follow them on my social media and they have just launched Kreg Australia. So they've been around for a very long time, of course, as Kreg Jig on Facebook and Instagram, but Kreg Australia now exists, and I will give them a big shout out. Make sure you do follow them. I won their first competition. It was a K5 master set, which was rather good, seeing as how I put a small little hole in the K4 last project. I'm also going to do, I think, a feature on the K4 versus the K5, but to give you some honest feedback, we're going to have to put this bad boy into action first, so I won't talk about it too much now, just to obviously share my excitement of winning something, which is awesome, and then we'll put it through its paces assembling these shelves. Again, if you're doing this the easy way, don't worry about your dados, just do some really accurate measuring and your life will be easy. Right, time to assemble, gluing and screwing. This is where the dados come into their own. Lining stuff up becomes really easy. So one thing I have noticed with the right angle pocket hole clamp is that it can, with glue, cause things to slide. These ones are great because they're supported on both sides, but when you've got the edge piece, it does pay to still put some clamping pressure in this direction. That one's such a good fit, barely needed the glue at all. Something you should probably consider on any project, but this one in particular, when you are wanting to use this type of guide, is whether or not your drill will actually fit. I'm going to have to use my impact driver just because it's smaller in order to do my drilling. Obviously not really designed for the task, but because they're so shallow, I should be able to get away with it. Small 3 bed slats scabbed off the side of the row, and just like last time, I'm cutting a little bit more off the bit that's going to be on the wall compared to one that's going to fit snugly into the units, so that when I hang them up, I've got a bit of play to shift them backwards and side. So I ran into a small problem during the dry fit, and that was this edge. So I've had to cut that off in order for when this is screwed and glued in, that this wouldn't hit it, and I can actually slide that onto the wall. I'm still a little bit worried about that being tight. I don't have a lot of play. So knocking that cap off there actually made it even easier to screw the pocket holes in. Time for all this to go. Might give me an excuse to make a new sign too, I think. Okay, now for the tricky bit. I want these to be pretty much flush together, which means I have to leave the cupboard on while I position the new shelves below it as accurately as possible for the wall mounts. That's the jack that I've stolen out of the back of my car, and I'm hoping this works. Beautiful. Great, okay, so that's holding well. Now, I can position the wall brace, put in the pilots, then take it all off and screw it in properly. Last stage for this build is just some quick floating shelves, of course, but then most importantly, the newest part, the drawers. Let's see what we can do with those. I've got a lot of this 9mm MDF in scrap form, which is what I'm going to use for most of the construction, and the base will be 6mm. However, because it is quite thin, this is one of the trickier things to do with the rip cut as opposed to a table saw. There we go, so going to cut 4 bits at once. The hardest part was making sure those were all, of course, 90 and that they are perfectly lined up along this edge, and that'll all come out at 68mm. So keeping the setup the same for every cut makes life really easy. This is how it's going to go together, upside down of course, so you can see that rebate where the drawer bottom is going to sit. Trying to hold that together. Oh. Ah, snug as. That's not bad for a first attempt. No fancy runners, nothing here, it's just literally friction fit. Right, this is all dry fit together, and now you can see the purpose of this rebate all the way around there. It's for this. That's just a quick cut of 6mm MDF. Band clamp. Don't use it terribly often, but when I do, I am very, very glad that I have it. And hopefully, if I've trimmed this up just right, that'll be a lovely snug fit. Wish I had 6 of these things. Okie dokes, the drawer front's going to be a lot easier than the drawers, thankfully. While they're drying, I've now cut this piece out, and the kerf of the blade of the circular saw is literally going to be the space between the drawers. Going to put a little bit of routed profile, just like these, I'm going to have a chamfer under there, and that's how the drawers are going to operate. And similar with this little top strip, it's going up there. Decorative chamfer, measured it up, snip it off at the right spot, give it a few coats of paint. Now my faceplates are all nice and painted up, ready for installation. How I'm going to do this is using a spacer block at the back, which is going to hold my drawer just proud. I have pre-drilled and countersunk some holes in there, so we are going to be screwing those. And that is double-sided tape, which I'm hoping is going to allow me to position those drawer fronts very accurately, like this. So I need to line it up to this corner here. Now I'm hoping that double-sided tape will grab. Fantastic, so that was just strong enough for me. Pull it out. Now it's clamped in place, and extend the pilot slightly. Test fit, see how this goes. And a final little embellishment, just a bit of trim for the front, not gluing it to the top, only to this, so that if I want to pull these units off in the future, it ain't going to break. Well, there we go. Stages 1 and 2 of the workshop reno are now complete. Those nice little chamfers under there and under there mean that I didn't need any hardware on the front, and of course I just cut out a few quick 6mm MDF floating shelves to give myself the storage. I may even put 2 in here. I'll have to get my stuff up first and figure out where it's all going to go. Pretty chuffed with how these came out. They look exactly like I designed them on SketchUp all those months ago. This has taken a while, hence why I haven't had quite as many videos out as usual. On and off for about a month it's been putting together this particular project because, well, we are just doing this for fun. It is part-time, so we can step away from the workshop improvements for a little while and get back to making some fun things. Not that this wasn't fun, it was bloody fun. And bloody practical too. Catch you around next time.